Welcome, everyone. As many of us struggle to recuperate after one of the world's worst health and economic calamities, is thinking about joy self absorbed and inappropriate? Quite to the contrary, actually, many researchers say that pursuing happiness, and more importantly, finding it, matters the most during dark times. Happiness gives us a resilience so that we can get through hard things. And this is a challenging time because it's both physical and a mental health crisis. We need to focus on happiness now, more, not less. My name is Rebecca Chaplin, and I serve as the Associate State Director with AARP North Carolina in the Mountain Region. I understand that people are joining us today from all across the country, which is really special so that we can ignite joy collectively. Today is the first day of a 3-week series on Sparking Joy, Exploring Possibilities. This series was developed and is being implemented by my colleagues with Jewish Family Services and our local area agency on aging. While we are spotlighting some of our local resources, there will be similar resources across the country, and we'll be sure to reference those and how you can find them. If you're watching this on YouTube, I encourage you to press subscribe so you will receive automatic alerts about upcoming editions of this series and other programs. Similarly, if you're watching on Facebook, I encourage you to like the page. The series is designed to be interactive, so we do want to hear from you. We can see your comments, we can answer questions that you might have. So the comment section might be either to the right of your screen or below the video that you're watching. So without further ado, I'm going to invite my colleague to cue up the first part of our session today. Welcome, Jessica.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here with AARP and the Area Agency on Aging to present the first Sparking Joy, a virtual event. We wanted to recognize the intersection of two awareness months that happen in May, Older Americans Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. And we hope by sharing the event this week and then for the next 2 weeks, we can break through some of the stigmas that people feel around mental health and break down barriers to seeking support from a counselor or therapist. This first week is called Spice It Up, and it's a look at how we can elevate mood and lift our spirits by trying new flavors, new techniques, and exploring new possibilities to spark joy in the kitchen. We're going to watch some videos from Rachel Kalin, who is an Asheville, North Carolina-based chef who prepares meals for older adults participating in our Jewish Family Services Senior Socialization and Group Respite Program. And then later we'll hear from Cathy Hohenstein, who's a registered dietitian with North Carolina Extension, and she'll share more about the importance of healthy eating and the impact on mental health. So let's take a look at what Rachel is going to show us today.
Hi, my name is Rachel Kalin, and I'm the chef at Jewish Family Services of Western North Carolina, Asheville. At JFS, I have the pleasure of doing something that I love, which is cooking and sharing my craft with some of the area's elderly population through our weekly Elder Social Club and our annual holiday meal delivery programs. With all the collective changes brought on by the global pandemic this past year, I understand that sometimes it's hard to make the time to nourish our bodies. Well, there's something that you can do if you haven't been doing it already, and that's preparing food for yourself. Whether it's every day or twice a week or a few times a week or just once a week, you pick one day that's special and you decide, I'm gonna cook for myself for this lunch or this dinner or just all day long or even a big fancy breakfast. Whatever you wanna do, pick a time to prepare a meal, because when you cook, cooking is a task that requires you to stay in the present moment. It allows you to focus on the task at hand. You can forget about the negative news cycle. You can forget about the negative voices in your head. Forget wondering when are you going to see this person or that person. But focus on the task at hand, which is preparing a delicious and nutritious meal for yourself. And then when you go to sit down with that food, that bowl of food, that plate of food, whatever it may be, you eat it and you realize that you did something for yourself. Not only did you do something for yourself, you prepared a healthy meal, and all of that, once it's digested, once you've done the dishes, once you reflect back, you realize that you've elevated your mood because you did something to make yourself feel better and to also focus on the task at hand. So in this little brief video, I'm going to demo a nutritious lunch that you can make on your own called the Mediterranean Buddha Bowl. The Mediterranean Buddha Bowl incorporates guidelines from the Mediterranean diet, which is a diet that's focused on mainly whole foods, fruits, veggies, whole grains, beans and legumes, little bit of dairy, little bit of poultry, eggs, very, very little meat. And the lunch also incorporates some of the ancient Hindu, Ayurvedic diet principles, incorporating certain spices that just help bring balance to the mind, body, and the soul. So we're gonna scoot on over to the prep table and I'll show you how to make this Mediterranean Buddha Bowl. All right, now we're gonna put together Mediterranean Buddha Bowls. I pre-prepared all the ingredients, did all my chopping and baking and mixed in the food processor, and we're ready to go. We are gonna start off with some seasoned bulgur. Seasoned bulgur is a popular whole wheat pasta grain found in the Mediterranean. You can also find it here in the local Ingles. I season it with sea salt, parsley, and extra virgin olive oil. And extra virgin olive oil is the olive oil of the Mediterranean diet. So make sure that's the olive oil that you pick up in the store. We're gonna use the bulgur as the base right here. And then we're gonna add all these lovely things that you see, such as we got roasted sweet potatoes, organic, a little bit of salt and pepper, a little olive oil, in a 375-degree oven for about 45 minutes. Sweet potatoes are really, really great for you. They're high in fiber. They have tons of vitamins and minerals. Then we have some raw cherry tomatoes. Cherry tomatoes are packed with antioxidants called lycopene, and lycopene are meant to protect your cells. We have some sweet onions. You can also use red onions, which are pretty popular in the Mediterranean diet. We have antioxidant-packed briny olive oils, roasted red peppers. Both are linked to heart health. Then we have some feta cheese right here, which is extremely high in calcium, and you're allowed to have a little bits of dairy in the Mediterranean diet. And feta cheese, since it's so high in calcium, it's, you know, it's great to sprinkle here, there, everywhere. And then I made something calling this a golden hummus. Here is where our protein is mainly coming from today. It's from garbanzo beans or chickpeas, which is a legume. And legumes are super important on the Mediterranean diet. I just took a can of chickpeas, I drained it and put it in the food processor with a bunch of herbs and spices that are actually promoted through the Ayurvedic diet. For example, we got turmeric, we got some ground ginger in here, some garlic, and right here we had some coriander and cumin. And these two spices, the turmeric and the ginger, are considered powerhouse spices. They are linked to inflammatory properties, digestive aid. They help with joint health, immune boosters, and anti-carcinogenic. And then the coriander and the cumin, they also are aid digestives and urinary tract health. So now I'm gonna actually build the rest of the bowl. I'm gonna use my clean hands and sprinkle some sweet potatoes in here. Take some raw tomato, some of these delicious sweet onions, some red pepper, some briny olives. Get a little more because I like it. And then I'm gonna take a huge hunk of this chickpea hummus, golden hummus with the turmeric and the ginger, put it on the side here. sprinkle our bowl on top with some feta cheese, a little bit of olive oil, just a nice little drizzle from some added fat. Let me rinse my hand real quick. And then do nice grind of sea salt, Himalayan sea salt. And why not some pepper? And there you go. You have your Mediterranean Buddha bowl. Doesn't that look delicious?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Rachel. That looked amazing. That hummus looked so easy. Probably even easier than going to the store and buying it. Well, welcome back, everyone. And now we're going to switch over to speak with Cathy Hohenstein, as I mentioned earlier, of North Carolina Cooperative Extension. Hi, Cathy. We're thrilled to have you today.
It's great to be here. Glad to be here.
Great. Thank you. Well, we're going to talk about the impacts of food on mental health. And so the first question I wanted to ask you is, so aside from the, important physical benefits of eating healthfully as we age, why is it important for, older adults or people over 50 or 55 to eat well when it comes to brain health?
So your brain is still a part of your body, and a lot of the things that we eat will also affect how our brain is continuing kind of to age. So making those choices around, and they've done some research around some of the different ways of eating, both in kind of the Japanese style as well as the Mediterranean style, and kind of compared them to the way that the Western cultures like we normally eat in America. And they do find that there's benefits to kind of following and eating in ways, for the most part, every day. I usually try to tell people we can usually fit almost everything into our diet. It's just a matter of what we're doing on our most of the time. That's important.
Okay. Is there research out there that shows a link between healthy eating and mental health?
Yes, so lots of times what we choose to eat can affect our moods. It can also affect kind of like how our brain is acting, which also has an impact on kind of mental health, like depression and areas like that. And one of the things that I'll go ahead and share some of the resources, but Harvard Health has some really good resources around kind of that research that's out there with mental health and how we eat. And again, too, kind of thinking about, you can sometimes even do a self-study. I tell people, like certain foods you eat, or when you're eating a certain way over time, kind of like when we tell people to exercise. And how do you start feeling mentally after you get into that routine? I think sometimes people can just maybe keep a little journal about how they're feeling, and if they make some dietary changes, how are they feeling later? So again, there are some of those links that are specific to the components of what you're eating, so chemically. But then I think also there's some of that link too, is if you're trying to do something new and good for yourself that has that secondary mental health effect for you, when you realize, oh, I've included this, or I'm getting to a point where this is a routine for me, and I've done it. That's another second boost to our health mentally.
That's a great point. And I understand we have a question, but I wanted to get to a few more questions for Cathy before we go to the live questions. And the impact that things such as herbs and spices can have on mood. And I thought about this over the weekend. I found a small can of Chinese 5-spice powder that I haven't used in a long time, I'm sad to say, but I opened it up and I smelled it, and you just get all these wonderful smells, and it kind of, I don't know, for a few minutes I felt a little lighter on my feet. And so can you speak to that? Was I just feeling things, or is there really a connection for those herbs and spices?
So a lot of kind of smelling can actually be connected to kind of in our brains. There's some cinnamon, I think, is one that does kind of have that connection. And again, too, if you think, and some of it is an actual chemical like in it, but then sometimes we have those connections with certain smells that are also memory triggering. They are kind of making that your brain. If you think of your favorite recipe or walking into maybe your grandmother's kitchen or growing up, and you have that one food that they made that kind of triggers that connection to a positive memory. But cinnamon can be one of those strong ones that does kind of have that kind of effect, that a good feeling.
Sure. I really wanted to get to the topic of the Mediterranean diet, because I know that's something that you're very interested in, and Rachel in her videos made reference to that. So if you could talk about what that is and how the principles of eating this way can impact not only physical but mental health as well.
So the Mediterranean diet is really a diet that's going to be, like Rachel said, like it includes whole foods. So you're looking at your whole grains, you're looking at your fruits and vegetables, and decreasing kind of those saturated fats, so less on relying on protein sources that are meat sources, and more protein sources that are connected to your nuts and kind of your plant sources, and then also your seafood. So seafood's going to be a part of that. And then your healthier oils, like your olive oils, using your spices and your flavorings. I think sometimes we also think of the Mediterranean diet, we think of Greek, and we think of kind of if you have a lot of heavy cheese and dairy, but it's really not. So the Mediterranean lifestyle and Mediterranean diet is still, you have dairy, but it's still not the main component. Your main components are your whole grains, your fruits and vegetables, and then kind of your healthier proteins that are more of the fish-based, as well as the nuts and seeds and beans and legumes. And all of those are going to play a part in oxidation and inflammation. And so that's one way that we feel it's linked to kind of those disease and also your brain health.
Great. So we do have a few questions that we wanted to respond to. And so Claire asked, what was the first thing in the bowl? White.
Oh, the base of the.
I know. Now I'd have to go back and watch the video. Well, you'll be able to watch later on and rewind through. Bulgur, thank you. It was Bulgur. And Cathy, do you want to talk a little bit about what that is? And I understand it's very healthy, but I couldn't begin to talk about why. So
your bulgur is going to be kind of used as a base, kind of like your rice. And again, it's one of those. It's going to be one of the healthier, I consider it, grains, but some of our healthier grains also give us a good source of protein. And so your bulgur can kind of start you off, and I think she chose to use it because it's a grain that we don't. I'm laughing. It's a grain that we sometimes won't try, and it's not common in our diet. Same as with quinoa, like bulgur quinoa can be new ways of kind of expanding, and instead of using white rice and some of the pastas that we're more used to.
Yeah, that brings up a great point, that there are some grains that are healthier than other grains. Yeah, that's great. And I think there was another question. Is the recipe available? We can definitely make it available and put it in the comment section after the fact, after we're done. We'll make the recipe available. Thank you. So you mentioned earlier that trying new things and just having that experience of trying, and also maybe even being successful at trying something new, is part of mental health. And To me, that's sort of linked also to self-care, having those like small victories for yourself when you do prepare something and it actually turns out. And for many of us also self-care means, a little something extra on the side, maybe something salty, crunchy, something sweet. Some of us think like, well, oh yeah, sure, I eat that real dark chocolate that's healthy, but no, you might want a little something else every now and then. And what impact does that have on mental health? And why would you not want to indulge every now and then in something?
Yes, there's a lot of new research, and I'm excited about this new research where they're really looking at our relationship with food. And so you can have a healthy relationship, and denying yourself foods is usually an unhealthy way to be related with food. So I never push anybody or I support people to have what they really truly like and finding ways to include that. So, like I said, my husband's favorite chocolate is not dark chocolate. He likes milk chocolate. So, having the chocolate we eat always be dark chocolate, it's not necessarily going to help us mentally. But then again, do we want to have that milk chocolate at every meal or every dessert for the week? Probably not. So there's ways of kind of working it in. Sometimes I tell people, if you can handle just a little taste of something, but you have to, if you have to kind of judge how you're going to feel in the end, and kind of having yourself have the freedom to accept that there are some things that I like that aren't always the healthiest thing for me to eat. People look at me sometimes when I'm eating with them and they're like, "You're eating that?" I'm like, "Yes." So what I usually say is I need to know even for myself. There's some foods I don't buy the big bag of potato chips. If I need that salty taste, sometimes again a sweet taste, adding some cinnamon to a recipe really brings out the sweetness in it. And so there's some things that you can kind of combine that kind of bring things, other flavors out. Recently, we did a class with yogurt and made homemade yogurt. So we were able to kind of ferment it and make it so that it was that real tart taste I like, real strong flavor. And so I only needed to put blueberries in the plain yogurt. I didn't need any extra sweetness because the flavors just blended well for me. And so I think, yes, you can fit some of those things that are special to you into how you eat. One thing I also say is if you end up eating something and you think, oh, I should have had that, let it go. It's already done. You just go on to your next day.
That's a great way to look at it. Can't take it back. We have another question for Cathy.
Mm-hmm.
Cathy, you can see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, your spices do lose their flavor and their potency over time, and so that's why you want to make sure you store them in a cooler, kind of darker space. Same thing for your oils. So your oils will also kind of tend to go rancid if they're kind of right with your oven, next to your oven or your stove that gets heated up a lot. Even though it might seem to be the ideal place to put your spices because they're right there on hand, it can be better to store them a little bit further away. And again, too, I also suggest that if you get some spices and you don't use it a lot, you may need to test it. And over time, that's why you may have some dates on your spices because you're going to lose that flavor that they give you and also some of those health potency benefits.
Great. That's such a good thing to think about. It's making me rethink my kitchen a little bit, which is right behind me, where I place some things on the counters. So we've got one more question for Cathy, and you've talked a little bit about this, but what other foods are linked to strong mental health and maybe delaying the onset of some of these illnesses that we associate with aging, such as dementia or Alzheimer's? And is it possible to do this with food?
So some of the things, it's kind of still that full kind of, I guess, collection of way of eating. And so they have done a study, and it's called, and I'll share a link to this, the Mediterranean and Mind diets, and kind of that, the leafy greens, kind of your berries, your dark berries. But then again, too, if you're thinking about kind of the fats and the oils, I think we talked a little bit about that, but kind of your monounsaturated oils, your olive oil, can be a good source, and that going to work on that, what we think about, and I think the connection is the oxidation that's happening in our bodies. Sometimes there's some ingredients, and I know I did a quick search. Someone was asking me another day about B12, and there's some research out there that B12 deficiencies can result in some of the memory loss and Alzheimer's, but not necessarily as a treatment. So like once it's on, you have that onset. So kind of, again, looking at your, if you've been diagnosed needing B12, some of the benefits for really bringing that level back up in your system will be a preventative type of step for some of the later times if you're going to kind of prevent having more issues later.
Great, thank you. Well, we really appreciate you being here to dive into this subject with us. We all think about food and need it to survive, and obviously we want to eat as healthily as we can. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. And Cathy, if you can stay with us for just while we wrap up in case someone has a question for you. And actually, I will start. Cooperative Extension is a resource that is all across the country. Tell us more about what that resource is for people and how they can connect with a Cooperative Extension near them.
So Cooperative Extension is associated with land-grant universities in each of the states. Here in North Carolina, we're associated with NC State University and NC A&T University. One's in Raleigh, one's in Greensboro. And the Family Consumer Science program in each of the states with Cooperative Extension is where you'll find most of your health, wellness, nutrition, food type of programming, as well as some of programming for healthy aging. So you'll see that, as well as we have our youth programs like 4-H and the agricultural side that we are connected to. We can share, I think Rebecca shared kind of that, where are the land-grant universities in each state. If you're in North Carolina, you can kind of look for me if we share my email. But feel free to email me if you're even across the country, and I can link you with some programming across the state.
Do you want to give us your email right now? I didn't put that in you can just say it out loud, and I will create a little banner while you say it.
So if you see my name, it's basically my name, Cathy _Hohenstein at ncsu.edu.
Let's see if we got that right here. So Cathy's a great resource. Does that look right, Cathy?
Yes, that's
super.
correct.
And we will put the link to finding your cooperative extensions into the comment section momentarily. We have a new face here on the screen, and I just want to give Bria a chance. Bria is our representative with the Area Agency on Aging here. Bria, what kind of health and wellness and mental health support can people find through an Area Agency on Aging?
Thank you, Rebecca, for introducing me. And there are all kinds of resources available. For the region that we're in, you can go to the Land of Sky website, and there are everything from our advisory council to senior grandparent programs, health and wellness programs, which is what I work with. We have ombudsman's programs. It's just really a whole host of resources that are available, and I would absolutely encourage folks to check those out in their areas locally.
Great. Thank you, Bria. And Jessica, we didn't talk much about the Healing Solutions counseling and mental health support that's available and covered by Medicare, both in Western North Carolina and then maybe across the country. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So Healing Solutions Counseling is a program of our local Jewish Family Services, which is based in Asheville, North Carolina. And for those who are local, we do accept Medicare along with a number of other insurances. And we do also offer sliding scale fees for those who need additional financial aid. But there are resources available all over the country, and I would suggest picking up the phone and contacting a local family services agency. We happen to be a Jewish family services. We're open to everyone of all faiths. And I would say any family service program is going to be the same way. So I would encourage people who are interested in some mental health support to pick up the phone. The help is there for you. And we've seen about a 14% increase in our appointment numbers through the pandemic, and that gives me hope that people are picking up the phone and calling, and realizing that like we said at the beginning, we've all been feeling isolated, and this is a time when you just need to do it if you're ready for the support and for someone to give you a path, help you find your path.
Oh, I love that. And I think that each organization here does that in a different way. Cooperative Extension certainly help people provide a path and healthy lifestyle. The fact that you can get a Medicare reimbursed service for mental health is really wonderful, and that exists all around the country, and that area agencies on aging are everywhere you go across the nation, and they have health promotion services that can help people's bodies and their minds. And then there is always, of course, we'll end with AARP. AARP has programs like this one, and our mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. We all know that health and financial security are a huge part of being empowered to choose how you live as you age. And I encourage people to go to this website to find out what's happening with AARP near you. So thanks for joining us today. We hope to see you next week for Digging in the Dirt, the next edition of our Sparking Joy. And the week after that, it will be a session on gaming. So we really hope that you will join us all 3 weeks. We'll say bye for now, everybody.